right, everybody, we're about to review terms of direction with Zima, our friend here who is a green iguana. So first two terms are very simple. They're terms you've probably heard of before. So we have dorsal, which is the back of the animal, and then ventral, which is the belly or the smooth kind of soft side. Now, dorsal, think about it, right? Like a dolphin has a dorsal fin. So that should help you remember that that's the back of the animal. All right, next we're gonna go over some terms that mean more towards directional. So first we have the words cranial and anterior. So they both mean the same thing, and that's towards the head or the skull region. The opposite of that is we have caudal or posterior, which means towards the tail portion, which on him is like all the way off the table here, is the caudal end of his body. There's another term that you might also hear referencing the head or skull, and that's rostral. So that's something we'll probably use on maybe a dog or something that has like a muzzle or a snout. So that means moving towards the tip of the nose is rostral. And then you would still use caudal or posterior when talking about going towards the tail. So next we have two terms that may be new to you, and that's palmar and plantar. So palmar is referring to the walking surfaces of the front feet here. Plantar is referring to the walking surfaces of the back feet here. Next, we're referring to the words proximal and distal, which are referencing structures on typically the limbs. So proximal means closer to the body or the main like torso, and distal means further. So we may say, for example, that his toenails are distal to the knee. All right, a couple more terms that are referring to direction are medial and lateral. So before we talk about these though, I need to discuss the term midline. So the midline is essentially the plane that would divide him in half all the way down, splitting him into like a left or right. So like on you as a human, it would divide you right down the middle onto two sides. So if something is medial, it's nearer to the midline than something else. And if something's lateral, it's further from the midline than something else. So we could say that, for example, his knee is lateral to his hip. Lastly, we're going to talk about right and left. Now this may seem pretty simple to you, right? You have your right hand and your left hand, but when you're looking at specimens, especially during dissection, right and left is referring to their right and left. So on Zima, this would be his right side, and then this over here would be his left side. Lastly, we're going to talk about two terms that only apply to animals with radial symmetry. So radial symmetry is when it can be divided in multiple ways and still be equal on both sides. So for this sea star, for example, we're going to talk about oral and aboral. So the oral side is the mouth side or the bottom of your sea star, and the aboral side is the top side or where you would find the anus on the sea star.